By the early 16th century, the Indian subcontinent was a dense tapestry of regional powers, wealthy, independent kingdoms that had spent centuries competing for the territory's vast agricultural yields and trade routes. This political fragmentation provided an opening for Babur, a Central Asian prince who had lost his own kingdom in modern-day Uzbekistan and was looking for a new base of operations to the south. Babur introduced a technological shock to the region. He combined field artillery with high-speed flanking cavalry, tactics that allowed his relatively small force to outmaneuver the larger, more traditional armies of his rivals. This illustration of the First Battle of Panipat shows the decisive impact of those cannons. Babur used centralized artillery to break the momentum of the Delhi Sultanate's war elephants, effectively ending their rule in a single afternoon. Superior weaponry allowed a foreign invader to seize the capital, but military dominance provided no guarantee of long-term stability in such a massive and diverse territory. Babur and his son, Humayun, quickly discovered the limits of conquest. While they could win battles, they struggled to establish an administrative system that could actually collect revenue or maintain order across their new lands. The fragility of their rule became clear when Humayun was defeated by local Afghan forces and driven into a 15-year exile in Persia, leaving the future of the Mughal dynasty in doubt. The central challenge was demographic. The Mughals were a tiny Central Asian minority attempting to rule over a population that outsized them by millions. Relying purely on the threat of force was an unsustainable strategy for a group so vastly outnumbered. To survive on the subcontinent, the Mughals had to move past the role of foreign occupiers and invent a way to integrate themselves into the existing political and social fabric of India. Akbar inherited this crisis as a teenager, relying on a regent to defend the empire's borders. However, as he took personal control, he began implementing a series of reforms designed to move the state away from pure military dominance. He started by removing the jizya, a tax specifically levied on non-Muslim subjects. By eliminating this financial distinction, he took a significant step toward neutralizing the hostility of the Hindu majority. He then formalized the Mansabdari system, a bureaucratic structure that offered high-ranking military and civil positions to local elites. This included many of the Rajput kings, who had previously been the Mughals' most determined enemies. By distributing power and wealth through this system, Akbar turned regional rivals into stakeholders. These local leaders now had a direct interest in the empire's success, providing the manpower and local knowledge needed to defend the state. This policy of integration, which Akbar called universal peace, is visible in his architecture. Structures like the Buland Darwaza combined Persian design with Indian materials and craftsmanship, creating a visual identity that represented the entire subcontinent. These policies of power sharing and cultural synthesis provided the foundation for over a century of internal stability. Under Akbar's successors, Jahangir and Shah Jahan, this stability fueled a period of immense economic growth as the empire's unified administration eased the flow of trade across the region. This prosperity manifested in an architectural explosion, culminating in projects like the Taj Mahal, a structure that broadcast the empire's wealth to the rest of the world. At the height of this era, Jahangir made a routine commercial decision. He granted a coastal trading permit to a small group of foreign merchants, seeking to bring even more global commerce into Mughal ports. And the recipient of that permit was the British East India Company. While it appeared insignificant during the Mughal Golden Age, this concession allowed a foreign corporation to establish a permanent presence on the coast, a foothold that would remain dormant until the empire's internal unity began to fail. The strategy of integration was discarded by Emperor Aurangzeb. He reimposed the jizya tax and ordered the destruction of several prominent Hindu temples, marking a return to a more rigid ideological stance. This shift rapidly alienated the Rajputs, Marathas, and Sikhs. The alliances that had kept the empire stable for generations began to dissolve into open rebellion and civil war. Even as he faced internal unrest, Aurangzeb launched relentless military campaigns to push the empire's borders to their absolute limit, as seen in this map from 1700. But holding these distant southern territories proved impossible. The sheer distance from the capital in Delhi made it difficult to manage supply lines, and the constant warfare exhausted the imperial treasury. By choosing territorial expansion over the policies of inclusion that had secured the loyalty of his subjects, Aurangzeb left the empire overextended and internally fractured. After Aurangzeb's death, the state was bankrupt and exhausted by decades of guerrilla warfare. The central government collapsed as regional governors and military leaders broke away to form independent states, effectively shattering the unified empire. The British East India Company leveraged this fragmentation. They used their established coastal trade networks to intervene in these local conflicts, conquering the subcontinent piece by piece. The transition was completed in 1857, when the British deposed the final Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah II, ending a dynasty that had shaped the subcontinent for over 300 years. Military technology provided the Mughals with their initial conquest, but the empire's collapse demonstrates that only a policy of inclusive governance